Exposed, 7 terrifying teacher stories that reveal the haunted secrets of the class. Our own Jessica stepped into Maplewood Middle School every morning with a heart heavy with anxiety. The building creaked as if whispering its dark secrets into wide hallways filled with memories that suffocated hope. Ethan, her 7-year-old son, clutched her hand tightly, his small fingers trembling against her palm. The air outside was thick with a strange energy, as if something sinister was lurking just beyond the shattered glass of abandoned windows. The laughter of children echoed in her mind, a ghostly reminder of a time when the school thrived. But with each passing day, something felt off. Whispers among the staff grew louder, hints of an old teacher who vanished without a trace decades ago, yet no one spoke of it openly. They stared blankly as she asked questions, their eyes darting away like frightened children. "Mom, I don't like the dark anymore," Ethan confessed one night, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's a shadow looking in." Jessica's heart sank. She brushed it off, attributing it to his imagination, but dread knotted in her stomach. Each moment ticked away, shadows extending in every corner of their lives. As she walked past the peeling walls of her classroom, Jessica stumbled upon a hidden closet, a relic of the past festering in the gloom. Inside lay dusty folders filled with old lesson plans, ink stains mingling with fading memories, a historian's graveyard echoing tragedies in every corner. Names, dates, losses, the heavy burden of the school's history clung to her like stale air. The hairs on her neck prickled, she could almost hear the sighs of former students, whispering the same terror that seemed to seep from the walls around her. The rhythm of her days became a dance with unease. Children turned ghostly pale, claiming to hear whispers, strange voices hovering above them in the classroom. "Help us, don't let them," they would wail, their eyes wide with fear. Each time she reassured them, Jessica felt her own fears swell like a tidal wave, threatening to crash down. Then it happened. Ethan became consumed. Night after night, his small frame huddled beneath the covers, eyes darting at the shadows that danced around his room. "It's standing there, Mom. Please don't make me sleep." His cries pierced her heart, and every night his pleas became more desperate. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Racing against time, she confronted the principal, only to meet an icy smile that promised nothing but deceit. Dread flooded through her veins, choking her thoughts. It turned out that the shadows weren't just fantasy, they were woven into the very fabric of their lives, entwined in the community's heart, a legacy begging to be uncovered. With the weight of their fears pressing down, Jessica clung to the hope of saving Ethan. But as she ventured deeper into the twisted truths of Maplewood, she sensed that some secrets were meant to stay buried. The shadows seemed to whisper back, drawing closer as she began to peel away layers of history that threatened to engulf them both. What had she unleashed, and how far would she go to unearth the horror lurking beneath? A chill engulfed her as she thought, was the true horror the shadows or the truth they hid? Jessica fled from the principal's office, her thoughts spiraling into a storm of dread. The echo of his icy laughter haunted her steps, clinging to her like a second skin. As she descended the creaking staircase, the uneasy feeling settled deeper into her bones. The air was thick with whispers, voices that seemed to dance around her, taunting and teasing. Ethan's small, fragile voice rang in her ears, drowning out everything else. "Don't let them get me, Mom." With each heartbeat, her urgency escalated. She knew she had to do something, anything to protect him. Later that evening, as darkness wrapped around their home, Jessica laid beside Ethan in his bed, the covers pulled up to his chin. He gazed with wide eyes at the small crack in the door, where shadows stretched like fingers reaching into the room. "Mom," he whimpered, voice cracking. "I'm here," she replied, forcing calm into her shaky tone. "Can we stay awake?" Until morning. The chill in the room made her shudder. She wrapped her arms tightly around him. We'll stay up. I promise. As the hours crept by, the silence became an antagonist in their battle against fear. The clock ticked loudly, each second echoing like a countdown. Each tick felt like a harbinger of what was to come. With every creak of the old house, Jessica's heart raced faster. The shadows seemed to grow darker, colder. Suddenly, a soft thud resonated from the hallway, and Jessica's breath hitched. Did you hear that? She whispered. Ethan nodded, pressing his small body against her. I don't like it, Mom. Neither do I, she murmured, gripping him tighter. A low whisper threaded through the air, barely audible, as if floating on the breeze. Help us, don't let them bleed. The voice scraped against her ears, insistent and terrifying. Jessica shot up, fear clawing at her throat. Stay here, she instructed, heart hammering as she crept toward the door. It felt like a portal into a realm she could barely comprehend. As she opened it, the air felt electric, tinged with something darker than simple dread. She pressed her hand against the wall, feeling the coldness seep into her skin as she leaned into the shadows, peering into the dimness. The hallway lay still, but beneath the veneer of calm, the whispers grew louder, coiling around her like a serpent. They called to her with malicious familiarity. What secrets twisted through those walls? Instinct took over, and she moved toward the source of the sound. As she neared the old classroom, a room long abandoned, its door ajar, the whispers crescendoed into a scream of despair, echoing off the walls. Please find us. The cry pierced through the silence, a desperate plea from the past. A sudden crash sent an icy fear down Jessica's spine. Something stirred within the classroom. Was it a figment of her imagination, or was the darkness alive? Ethan. She called, heart racing as she stepped inside the room. The air grew heavy, thick with sorrow and fear. Each step felt like a descent into a nightmare, shadows flickering and retreating as if alive. And then, a figure emerged from the depths of the darkness, pale and ghostly, whispering words that twisted Jessica's sanity. You must help us. Jessica stumbled back, her breath caught in her throat. Who are you? She demanded, though deep down she feared the answer. The figure leaned closer, the chill of its presence wrapping around her, and as recognition dawned, a single chilling thought struck her: she was not alone. A flickering light filled the room, and with it, Jessica understood. In her quest for truth, what doors had she just opened? As the figure's voice grew clearer, one phrase echoed through her mind like a bell tolling in the night: they want him. Jessica's heart pounded. What did that mean for Ethan? The shadows closed in, but the figure reached out, extending sunken fingers, their purpose unclear, but their intent, unmistakable. What would she risk to protect her son from the darkness that craved him? The truth loomed before her like a storm, ready to unveil its terrible secrets. Would she have the strength to confront it? Or would it consume them both? The ghostly apparition hovered before Jessica, its features flickering like an old film reel. She could feel her pulse throbbing in her ears, drowning out the ghost's desperate whisper. Help us, save him. She choked on her words. Save him? Who do you mean? The room darkened further, shadows licking at her heels, as if eager to pull her into their cold embrace. The figure swayed, revealing a face she'd never expected to see. It was a student from years past, a girl with vacant eyes, long hair flowing like black smoke. Ethan, he marked, she rasped, her voice strained, tethered to the living only by fear. Jessica felt her breath quicken. Marked? By who? What do you mean? Panic twisted her insides, slicing through the fog of confusion. The girl pointed toward the cracked window, where the moonlight struggled to pierce the gloom. He's chosen. Please, you must stop them. Her features twisted in pain, as if reliving some old torment. They won't let him go. They never let us go. Jessica's heart raced. Let who go? What happened here? Suddenly, flares of memory ignited in her mind, snippets of stories told in hushed tones among fellow teachers. Rumors swirled about a dark history within these walls, about children lost and never found. It had been years since anyone spoke of those events, but now they came rushing back, lives shattered, laughter turned to screams. "Don't let them take your light," the ghost continued, her voice growing fainter, as if the darkness was consuming her too. A loud clap echoed from behind Jessica. She spun around, a jolt of adrenaline surging through her. The door to the classroom slammed shut with a deafening bang. Panic clawed at her throat. "Ethan!" She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the shadows. The classroom was alive now, the air thick with despair and dread. Bleak figures materialized, their outlines flickering between the walls. They moaned softly, an agonized chorus that struck at Jessica's heart with a cold reminder of their haunted existence. She stumbled back, trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. The ghost had warned her they want him. This darkness craved something, a sacrifice for their long-lost hopes. With shaky hands, Jessica searched for a way out. Her thoughts exploded into a chaotic whirlwind. What if she couldn't save Ethan? What if the true horror lay not in the shadows, but in the truths they carried? The ghost seized her attention again, her voice now a pained whisper against the wailing shadows. "You're the only one who can break the cycle. You must find the truth." "What truth?" Desperation rose, nearly choking her. The girl's eyes locked onto Jessica's, filled with an urgency that stilled the world around them. The one buried beneath the school, the blood of those who came before. Before she could respond, the classroom tipped and swirled. Jessica felt dizzy, her surroundings turning into a blend of history and nightmares, a dark abyss pulling at her very soul. And then, with a surge of energy, she lunged at the door, rattling the handle. It wouldn't budge, no matter how hard she pulled. Behind her, the figures twitched in agitation, the air thickening with palpable rage. With a sharp inhale, she turned back to the ghost. "I will. I'll find the truth. Just let me." But the shadows surged forward, clawing at her vision, choking off her words. They hungered for her, the living, breathing essence she embodied. In that instant, everything faded to black. The silence deafened her, as if the world itself held its breath. Then, a whisper floated through the void, chilling her to the bone. "The time has come." Jessica's heart thundered. What would she find if the darkness opened its wretched maw to reveal the secrets buried beneath the school? And more importantly, what would happen to Ethan if she didn't? As the shadows swirled around her, their intentions dark and unfathomable, one thought pierced through the chaos: she would have to confront whatever lay ahead if she hoped to save her son. But a new fear established itself in her mind. What if uncovering the truth would cost her everything? The world snapped back into focus, the classroom settling around Jessica like a thick fog. She was alone, or so it seemed. The whispers persisted, a haunting chorus that curled around her, dragging the air from her lungs. The blood of those who came before. The words echoed in her mind, relentless, demanding attention. Jessica gritted her teeth, panic bubbling in her chest. She had to find Ethan. The urgency burned through her as she glanced around the classroom, desperately seeking an exit, anything that could lead her to her son. The shadows shifted, writhing against the walls, their forms growing longer as spectral limbs reached out like skeletal fingers. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice shaking but resolute. "You're not taking him. I won't let you." The shadows recoiled, momentarily pushed back by her defiance. A breath of cold air slithered past her, whispering promises of despair. But somewhere within it, there was a hint of something else, a challenge. Taking a deep breath, Jessica scanned the room for clues. Old wooden desks creaked beneath the weight of unseen presence, and every shadow seemed to whisper her name, echoing around her as if testing her resolve. The moonlight dimmed, plunging the room into twilight, the edges of her vision blurring into darkness. "Jessica," a voice called gently, barely above a whisper. It was familiar. "Help us, Ethan." She gasped, her heart leaping at the sound. She turned sharply, searching for her son amidst the encroaching darkness. "Where are you?" "I'm hidden," he replied, the sound coming from deep within the walls. Trembling with fear, without thinking, Jessica rushed toward the source of the voice. The walls felt alive, breathing, pulsing with a rhythm that echoed her frantic heartbeat. The ghostly figures flickered at the corners of her vision, their anguished faces warping into expressions of desperation. Ether-laden air caught in her throat, she pressed her palms against the wall, feeling the cold, damp surface beneath her fingers. "Tell me. How do I find you?" "Under the floor." A heavy dread settled over her. She remembered how the old floors creaked, how they seemed to hide secrets in their depths. Without hesitation, she crouched, searching for loose floorboards, her movements quickening as the weight of time pressed heavily upon her shoulders. The classroom trembled, a warning. Shadows spiraled around her, growing hungrier for her light, fueling her fear. The faces twisted, and in that moment, she understood those lost souls were children like Ethan. They had suffered, and their pain wrapped around her like a suffocating shroud. That in a swift motion, she pried up one of the floorboards, splintering wood under pressure. The pungent scent of decay wafted from the opening beneath, as if the very earth was crying out to share its dark secrets. A gaping hole stared back at her, beckoning her into the abyss. With courage that felt fragile, Jessica reached into the darkness as far as she could. The coolness sent a shiver through her arm, but she pressed on, clawing deeper, determined. "Ethan!" she called, desperation coating her voice. Nothing but silence responded. Then, a pulse of dread wrapped around her heart. The darkness quivered, and a cold hand reached out to grip her wrist tightly. Terrified, Jessica yanked back, but the grip tightened, and a guttural hiss filled her ears, echoing with rage. "Leave this place!" A voice growled, low and menacing. "You shouldn't have come here, teacher." Jessica's heart stuttered. Now, it was not just shadows she faced. Something far worse lurked in the depths, hungry to keep its secrets buried forever. She forced the words past her trembling lips. "I have to save him, I will." But the weight of anger pressed down hard, choking off her hopes. "Then you will pay the price." Dark laughter rumbled around her, drowning her resolve in fear. A flicker of light ignited in her heart. She had come too far to turn back now. With a fierce yell, Jessica pulled her arm free, heart racing as she stumbled backward. "Get away from him. I'm coming for you, Ethan." But as the shadows swirled menacingly, a thought pierced through her dread: would saving her son mean losing herself in the darkness forever? The darkness smirked, relishing her turmoil. And then, it tightened its grip once more. Jessica realized there was no turning back. But would she find the truth in Ethan, or only more horrors waiting to consume her? The grip around Jessica's wrist released for just a moment, as if momentarily startled by her fierce defiance. But the shadows were relentless. They surged forward, hungry and furious, swirling around her like a storm. Jessica stumbled back, her breath coming in gasps, the cold air thick with dread. "Ethan!" she screamed again, but her voice was swallowed by the cacophony of whispers. "Help us!" echoed through the room, but the urgency morphed into chaos, an anguished symphony of lost voices that clawed at her sanity. The classroom warped around her, the desks twisting and stretching, impossibly large and small at once. A faint light flickered ahead, beckoning her forward, a desperate glimmer through the haze. Jessica edged towards it, hoping against hope that it could lead her to Ethan. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The blood of those who came before. The words became a chant, a curse woven into the very fabric of the walls. Jessica felt herself being pulled deeper into the nightmare, her feet dragging through the chill that seeped from the ground. As she moved toward the light, it morphed into the outline of a door, splintered and worn. Its surface was marred with dark stains, as if it held secrets long hidden in its grain. She placed her hand against it, feeling a faint warmth. Hope surged within her like a flame. Then, the air changed. The whispers turned into a low growl, vibrating through her bones. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed again, a deep, guttural voice echoing from the shadows. The atmosphere thickened, pressing against her, suffocating her resolve. With gritted teeth, Jessica pushed the door open. It creaked, a mournful sound that cut through the whispers. Beyond lay a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness, the walls slick with moisture. She hesitated, her heart racing. Was this the way to Ethan? Come to me, a child's voice lilted from the pit below. It sounded like Ethan's, tinged with a fear that punched through her heart. Without another thought, Jessica stepped into the staircase, each step echoing ominously as she descended. The further she went, the colder it became, wrapping around her like a vice. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, writhing with an all-too-familiar hunger. As she reached the bottom, she pushed through a doorway to find herself in a dimly lit chamber. The air was thick with an overpowering stench of rot, the ground littered with crumpled papers and broken toys. In the center stood a large, old mirror, cracked and dusty. Its reflection seemed to blur and shimmer, distorting the reality around it. Jessica approached slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. The whispers intensified, echoing off the walls. The blood a pulse seemed to emanate from the mirror itself, a heartbeat synchronized with her own rising fear. She could see shadows moving within its depths, faces pressed against the glass, mouths open in silent screams. Ethan! She called, her voice cracking. She could sense him, feel him near. Would he be trapped in this horrifying reflection too? Mom! The voice came again, stronger this time, echoing through the chamber. A flicker of movement at the mirror's edge caught her eye. She saw his small hand reaching out, desperately pressing against the glass. With renewed determination, Jessica rushed to the mirror. Ethan! I'm here. Her hands pressed against the cold glass, feeling the pulse beneath it. But the shadows swarmed around her, clawing at her, attempting to pull her away from the mirror. You don't belong here. Leave this place. A chorus of voices screamed, blending into a cacophony of despair. Jessica fought against their grasp, her heart pounding. I won't leave without him. She yelled defiantly. Suddenly, the mirror rippled violently, the surface boiling like water. She could see Ethan more clearly now, his frightened eyes locked onto hers. Mom! Please! In that moment, Jessica knew the price she must pay. Would she risk everything for her son, even if it meant crossing the threshold into darkness? The shadows lunged, ready to pull her under. As fear wrapped its icy claws around her heart, in a final desperate move, Jessica leaned forward, hands outstretched, ready to break the barrier between worlds. But the mirror began to crack, and as it shattered, the room erupted in darkness. What would emerge from the fragments? A voice whispered, "Choose wisely, teacher." The darkness pulsed with an energy of its own, a suffocating blanket that swallowed Jessica whole. She felt a dizzying sensation, as if the very essence of time had broken apart, unraveling her from the world she once knew. Cold shards of the mirror's surface spilled around her like rain, each fragment glimmering with the promise of memories, long buried memories that were not hers. Mom! Ethan's voice echoed somewhere in the shadows, haunting and desperate. The remnants of the mirror whispered as they settled into the stale air, forming faces that flickered into and out of existence before her. Jessica's heart thudded painfully in her chest. Each face twisted in agony, mouths silently screaming. They were trapped as if the glass had imprisoned their very souls. Stay with me, Ethan. Jessica cried out into the engulfing blackness, her voice barely a whisper against an overwhelming void. I'm coming, hold on. She summoned every ounce of courage left in her. Step by step, she pushed through the darkness, her fingers grazing the jagged edges of shattered glass, drawing thin lines of blood along her skin. It stung, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the gnawing anxiety that clawed at her mind. What awaited her in that swirling darkness? What kind of horror had she unwittingly walked into? Shadows whipped around her, whispering her name, pulling her down corridors that seemed to stretch forever. She could see brief flashes of images, classrooms overrun with debris, abandoned desks littering the floor, their surfaces stained with long-forgotten lessons. Mom! Help! The shrill cry broke through the fog, pulling her towards a flickering light ahead. It coalesced into a dim glow, illuminating a twisted version of the classroom from her memories. But it was wrong, impossibly wrong. The walls pulsed as if alive, the black stains crawling upwards like dark tendrils hungry for assimilation. With her pulse racing, Jessica sprinted toward the light. "Ethan!" she shouted, determination fueling her resolve. Each step felt heavier, as though the shadowy tendrils were grasping her ankles, trying to drag her back. The classroom shifted, distorting as she entered. Desks were piled high, shadows flitted between them like grotesque marionettes, their movements jerky and unnatural. And there, against the far wall, stood a silhouette, a small figure trembling but clearly defined against the unsettling background. "Mom!" Ethan cried again, his voice trembling with fear, thick with claustrophobia. In the blink of an eye, she reached him, throwing her arms around his small frame, trying to infuse him with courage. But he felt cool, unnaturally so, and Jessica looked down at him, panic bleeding into her heart. The spark that usually lit his vibrant blue eyes was flickering, smothered by something dark and cold. "What happened?" she gasped, searching his face for any sign of safety. But his expression was a mix of sadness and horror. "They want to let me go," he whispered, voice shaky. "You should never come here." The whispers started up again, louder, a cacophony of dread and despair. "Leave. Leave. Leave," crashing into her like the tide. "No." Jessica shouted back, defiance surging through her. "I want to let you keep him." With renewed strength, she held Ethan tighter, her heart racing as she turned back to the shadows looming, watching the shadows twist and curl like smoke ready to engulf them. "Enough!" she yelled, voice rising above the chaos. "You can't have him." And then, something shifted. A blinding light exploded from within her, illuminating the dark chamber. Shadows recoiled, weaving back into the corners of the room, shivering in the brightness. But a lone silhouette, tall, indistinct, and menacing, stepped forward from the gloom, its eyes glowing like embers, wickedly hungry. "You should have chosen wisely," it hissed, voice like gravel scraping against glass. Jessica tightened her grip on Ethan, dread pooling in her stomach. The looming figure was stronger than any darkness she had faced before, and even her fierce love felt fragile against its malevolence. As the light began to dim, she knew one thing: she was about to make a choice, and it would change everything. Would bravery hold against an ancient evil? The shadows stirred once more, eager and waiting. Jessica's heart pounded as the dark figure loomed closer, its presence sucking the warmth out of the air. Ethan trembled in her arms, his pulse like a fluttering bird against her chest. "Mom, please," he stammered, his voice breaking. The malevolent figure opened its mouth, and a dreadful sound emerged, a raspy whisper that clawed at Jessica's mind. "You don't belong here, sweetheart. He's mine now." "No." Jessica's shout echoed, strong, defiant. She wasn't here to concede, she was here to fight. With a sudden surge of determination, she took a step forward, pulling Ethan close. "You can't have him. I want to let you." The shadow shuddered, seeming to recoil at her defiance, but that only fueled its anger. The walls vibrated, the very ground quaked with rage as echoes of tortured souls filled the air around them, wails and cries intertwined with whispers, carrying fragments of lost hopes. Each sound felt like a blade, slicing into her resolve, but she stood firm. "Look at him!" she screamed, gesturing towards Ethan, who was too scared to meet the figure's gaze. "He is just a child. You will not take him. You will not take anyone else." The figure's glowing eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, Jessica thought she could see terror reflected back at her. But then, with a booming voice, it bellowed, "Many have come before you, all trying to save their precious ones. They failed, and they paid the price." Each word dripped with menace, a promise of punishment. "No. I'm different. I won't fail." She felt the warmth of the light within her begin to fade, but she wouldn't let it. Gathering all her strength, she called on that inner luminescence, focusing it on Ethan. "Together, Ethan. We can beat it. Just hold on to me." The shadow hesitated, its form shimmering as if her determination was pulling it apart. Jessica felt the air grow lighter, the pressure around her lessening, but then chaos erupted. The classroom walls shook violently, splintering, oozing thick black tendrils that snaked toward them, hungry for flesh. Jessica gasped as the darkness clawed at her, squeezing her throat. "Mom, don't let go!" Ethan cried, his grip tightening around her waist. The shadows hissed and roared, desperation mingling with their fury as they writhed in protest. In one swift motion, Jessica raised her arm, the light bursting forth like a supernova, illuminating the entire room. The energy radiated from her so intensely that it stung her skin, fighting against the encroaching darkness. Shadows twisted, screaming in anguish, trying to escape the purity of her light. "Get back!" she bellowed, and the shadows recoiled, a wave of energy pushing them away as time itself seemed to shatter around her. Yet, in the midst of it all, she caught a glimpse of something horrific. Those faces from the mirror, now clearer than ever, fused with the darkness like specters rising from the depths of hell. They bared their teeth, reaching toward her, echoing her lost memories, each whispering a word she couldn't quite catch. "Mom! It's too much!" Ethan screamed, and she could see the fear etched in his small face. Desperation clawed at her heart. "Hold on, Ethan. We're getting out of here." She dug deep, pulling light from every fiber of her being, pushing against the overwhelming dread. But, as the darkness writhed, one voice broke through the chaos, louder than the others, a voice that sent ice through her veins. "You can't escape me, Jessica. You're just like them. You were destined to find this place." With a sudden surge of dread, Jessica realized this was not just a battle, it was a war against a deep-rooted evil that had awaited her return. Something vital clicked into place in her mind, unsettling and terrifying. The ground trembled beneath them as the figures lurked closer, drawn by her hesitation. "Mom!" Ethan's eyes widened in fear. Suddenly, the energy began to flicker, and shadows rushed in. The overwhelming darkness enveloped them both. What choice would she make now? Would she succumb to this ancient evil, or find a way to escape? The shadows seemed to whisper that time was running out, and then, all at once, darkness swallowed the light entirely, leaving only an echo of cries in the void. Jessica's vision blurred, engulfed by a blackness so complete that it seemed to swallow her very essence. Her heart raced, throbbing against the terror that filled her. A suffocating silence pressed down on her, as if the classroom itself was holding its breath. But in that stillness, she could still feel Ethan's small body trembling beside her. Then came the whispers. They were all around, seeping into her mind like a toxic mist. Each sound was a thread, pulling her deeper into an abyss of despair. She tried to focus, to remember the light, to summon it again. But the darkness dulled her thoughts, every flicker of hope snuffed out like a candle in a storm. "Mom!" Ethan's voice was faint, so fragile it broke her heart. "I can't see anything. Stay close, Ethan." Her voice was strained, but she willed herself to sound strong. "We'll get through this." The chill in the air thickened, a presence crawling along her spine. Then, just when she thought the weight of the shadows would crush them, a piercing scream split the silence, a sound so raw it felt like it came from the earth itself. Jessica's mind reeled, the echo of despair resonating with the very core of her being. Out of the void, a dark shape emerged, its features blurred and indistinct, but Jessica knew it could see her. "You think you can fight me?" The sinister voice serrated the air. "You don't realize who you are, what you are." "I know who I am," she shot back fiercely, clutching Ethan tightly. "I'm his mother, and I will protect him." Such devotion. The figure crooned mockingly, inching closer. "But even that cannot shield him. Your love is a weakness." The shadows writhed around it, forming eerie faces that twisted in sorrow and anguish, each one a story of defeat. Their mouths moved silently, screaming without sound. It was overwhelming. She felt herself weakening, the darkness creeping in. Ethan's hand squeezed her waist, jolting her back to the present. "Mom, I can see something." A door. His voice cut through the haze of panic. "Where?" Jessica strained her eyes against the dark. Straight ahead. He pointed, the sharpness of his little voice piercing through the miasma as bold as a flash of lightning. As she turned her gaze, Jessica could just make out flickering edges of faint light pulsating like a heartbeat. Was it real or a mirage conjured by her fading mind? We need to reach it, she urged, pulling Ethan along, every step feeling like running through molasses, but the shadows were relentless. They lashed out, tendrils of darkness scraping along her skin, leaving trails of cold that felt alive, wrapping around her legs, pulling her down. No! She shouted, summoning every ounce of her remaining strength. She could not let them take him. You will not have him. With reckless abandon, Jessica hurled her body toward the light, eyes locked on the hope shimmering ahead. She could almost taste it. The shadows shrieked in protest, their sound a cacophony that felt like nails on a chalkboard. The piercing noise momentarily distracted her, but she refused to back down. Just as they neared the flickering doorway, a searing pain ripped through her back. Mom! Ethan cried, terror and betrayal intertwining in his voice. Jessica stumbled, breathless, panic surging through her. She shouted for Ethan to keep moving, but her own body began to betray her. Darkness clawed into her flesh, and with each step she felt an anchor pulling her into despair. Ethan, go. Run. Mom, I want to leave you. As if on cue, the energy shifted, growing heavier and suffocating. The doorway flickered once, twice, then vanished into the void. Mom, what is happening? Ethan's screams echoed, drowning in despair. Then, the figure loomed back in, its void-like presence overshadowing everything. This is where it ends, Jessica. You belong to me now just like them. In that moment, realization dawned. This war was not just for Ethan's life, but her very soul. Desperation clawed at Jessica's heart as she fought against the dark tendrils wrapping tighter and tighter. Had she lost? Was this the end for both of them? But as shadows enveloped them, a final surge of will ignited within her. She was not done fighting. Not yet. And in that defiant moment, she felt something shift. Maybe, just maybe, strength could still be summoned from the depths of despair, but would it be enough? As the echo of the figure's laughter surrounded them, blurring the lines between fear and hope, they were both haunted by the darkness of uncertain fate. What choice could she make now? Would she stand against the void, or let it take everything from her? As the shadows closed in, Jessica braced for the next and final challenge. The darkness tightened its grip, a coiling serpent of despair. Jessica could feel Ethan's breath against her side, quick and shallow. Every whisper from the shadows felt cruel, taunting her resolve. You know you can't escape, the figure hissed, its voice oozing with malicious glee. You belong to me, just like they did. Shut up. She roared. Fueled by the fierce love for her son, she pushed against the suffocating darkness, gathering every scrap of resistance within her. The shadows writhed, agitated by her defiance, pressing closer, caressing her skin with icy fingers that seemed to siphon her energy. Ethan tugged at her hand. Mom, help me. His voice cracked, breaking through the cacophony of despair with a sound so genuine, it anchored her. Stay with me, baby, Jessica gasped, dragging her feet through the relentless miasma. She could see flickers of light, like fireflies scattering against a black void, and the energy from that light tugged insistently at her consciousness. Go ahead, call for help, the figure mocked. But there's no one to save you here. Look around. With a rush of panic, Jessica turned her head both ways. What had once been the familiar walls of a school were now distorted and twisted into grotesque shapes. The desks morphed into twisted limbs, the chalkboard writing creeping towards her like the tendrils of a dark vine. It churned her stomach, and for a moment, she faltered. Mom! Ethan cried again, urgency laced with terror. What do we do? With a steely determination, she knelt down, placing herself at Ethan's eye level. We fight. I will always fight for you, Ethan. Remember that. They took a step toward the light together. The figure hissed, shadows swirling in protest. You will regret that choice. The shrieking began anew, the wails of the lost ones echoing all around them. Voices seeped from the walls, their cries intertwining with a memory Jessica had pushed deep down. Faces formed from the shadows, twisted in anguish. Former students. Friends. Jessica, the voice was familiar. The teacher from years ago, the one who loved art, was bound in shadows. Help us get away from them. Jessica hollered, her throat raw. The dark presence laughed, an echo resounding in the cavern of despair. They are mine, just as you are destined to be. Horrified, Jessica stumbled back, pulling Ethan close. It's okay, Ethan. We can get through this. But doubt gnawed at her, feeding the darkness. The air thickened, almost suffocating, and the shadows quivered as if the very essence of her fear fed them. Mom. Ethan looked terrified, his small face pale in the dim light. Please don't let it take me. She shook her head fiercely, breathing deeply to steady her racing heart. I won't let it take either of us. With every ounce of strength, she rose, fists clenched, determined. The light pulsed in front of them, beckoning, and she realized it wasn't just hope, it was a choice. We can push through. She shouted. The figure recoiled, darkness hissing like steam from a pot on the verge of boiling over. You think you can withstand me? I am despair. I am failure. Jessica lunged, pulling Ethan with her, aiming for the flickering light. Sweat trickled down her back, and as she ran, the sound around her melded into a chaotic symphony of snarls, screams, and laughter that consumed her. Then, as she stretched her hand toward the pulsing radiance, something changed. A burst of energy lit up inside her like fire against the cold. This wasn't just about survival, it was about reclaiming everything. But would it be enough to hold on to Ethan as the shadows surged to consume them? She could almost taste the radiant freedom ahead, but the darkness lurked just behind them, ready to strike. A sudden tremor shook the ground, a crack appearing in the black, splitting the shadows apart. Jessica felt the force draw at her feet, and the figure's desperation intensified. No. You cannot leave. We're getting out. She screamed, lunging forward. Ethan's grip on her hand was slipping. Was the figure's cold breath finally reaching him? Or was the audience of the forgotten ready to claim their prize? With a final desperate push, they surged ahead. Would they break through to the light? Or would the darkness drag them back to an eternity of despair? The answer pulsed just out of reach, poised to unravel everything they knew. Jessica surged forward, heart racing as the darkness twisted and roared around them. We're almost there. She shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Just a little further, Ethan. The flickering light glowed brighter, cutting through the shadows like a blade. But the figure loomed larger, its presence a threatening void, clawing at their heels. You can't escape me. It screeched, each word dripping with malevolence. Ethan's small hand in hers felt fragile, like a thread stretched too thin. Mom! He cried, panic rising in his voice as he stumbled behind her. Stay with me. She urged, pulling him close. They pressed on, careening toward the light that promised safety, hope, freedom. Every step felt like wading through molasses as the cold hands of darkness clawed at their legs and tugged at their hearts. Suddenly, Jessica felt their grip release just slightly at the sound of a distant scream echoing through the air. Help us! The shadows howled, mimicking the tortured souls trapped within their grasp. No! Jessica gasped. We want to be part of that. Her voice had never felt more resolute. The swirling darkness hissed, pushed back slightly by her defiance. Just as she neared the radiant glow, the shadows lunged, blocking their path. You don't belong here. The figure boomed, its voice reverberating through the air, an ominous echo of despair wrapped in malice. Ethan shivered beside her, but just like that, Jessica felt warmth pulse through her, igniting her courage. I am his mother. She proclaimed fiercely. And I will not let you take him. With a shout filled with desperate love, she jerked forward, launching herself toward the light. The shadows shrieked, furious at her betrayal. You will pay for this. But Jessica didn't look back. Her focus remained on the light. In one last desperate leap, she felt a surge of energy from within, a fire that could not be extinguished. Together, Ethan! Jessica cried, gripping his hand tightly. The light enveloped them just as the shadows lunged, engulfing everything in a world of brightness, time suspended as they plunged into the brilliance. Jessica felt herself being pulled apart and put back together, the warmth wrapping around them like a protective blanket. She squeezed Ethan's hand, willing the darkness to fully release its hold. Mom! Ethan's voice broke through the blinding light, filled with wonder and relief. She turned to find him, eyes bright and glimmering. Did we make it? They landed softly on the schoolyard grass, the sun shining down as if they had just been reborn. Jessica gasped, the weight of dread rolling off her shoulders like a fading storm. The school stood before them, now a place of potential, not shadows. Yes, she breathed, looking down at her son, his face reflecting innocence and joy. We did it, Ethan. The tranquility of their surroundings felt surreal, the laughter of children returning, a sweet melody that floated in the air. The shadows had receded, and the remnants of a tainted past began to dissolve like mist in the morning sun. As they walked away from the school, Jessica embraced Ethan, the warmth flooding back into her heart. I'll always keep you safe, she whispered against his hair, tears brimming in her eyes. The weight of what they had faced melted away into a distant memory, replaced by the sound of hopeful laughter. Can we go get ice cream? Ethan asked, a smile breaking out across his face as he looked up at her with that spark she thought she might never see again. Absolutely, Jessica chuckled, feeling light with relief. But first, let us tell Dad what happened. And as they walked hand in hand, the sun shining bright above them, hope bloomed in a way that once felt impossible. They had faced the darkness and survived, healed by the unbreakable bond of love. While the past would never truly leave them, it had transformed into a story of resilience, a reminder that light would always find its way back in a legacy of strength for generations to come. But never forget, dear friends, darkness isn't something to be taken lightly. Remember Jessica's story. It's a reminder that love can withstand even the greatest fears. Please, if you enjoyed this journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to click that bell for all notifications, so you can dive into more exclusive tales. Smash that like button, feed the algorithm, and let us keep growing together. Your thoughts matter. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about Jessica's incredible escape and how she triumphed over darkness. And finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this story. Show them what true courage looks like. This is the moment to show your support. Join us on this journey today.